Hello everyone, welcome to today's story.
He knelt down in the stark white hospital room, a ring in his hand. The girl he loved lay there, her face pale, her eyes brimming with tears. A proposal with no flowers, no candles, only a heart laid bare in sincerity. But what left everyone breathless was her answer. Do you believe that, even the deepest love, can it truly be enough to walk together for a lifetime? Watch until the end of the video, and if you can feel the love between James and Diep, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I truly want to hear your thoughts. Morning in the hospital unfolded with a pale light, seeping through the misted glass, laying a fragile veil over the rows of stark white beds. From the hallway came the hurried footsteps of nurses, the rattle of medicine carts, and the intermittent coughs of an elderly patient in the next room. Together they formed a monotonous symphony, somber, endless, without reprieve. Diep lay silently on her bed, her pale face marked by the toll of a sleepless night. Her thin arms still bore the sting and chill of the IV needle. Each breath was its own small battle, heavy and constricting her chest. As her eyes wandered to the cold white ceiling above, a sudden loneliness swept over her. With no family by her side, James's presence had become her only anchor. Yet now he was occupied elsewhere, and she was left to endure alone, forbidding herself the luxury of weakness.
After a meager meal, Diep's eyes drifted to the basket of fruit resting in the corner of the table. Slowly, with trembling hands, she picked up a knife and carefully peeled slices of orange, cut a few pieces of golden mango, and arranged them neatly on a plate. A faint smile flickered across her pale face as she carried the plate over to offer it to the other patients in the room. "Please, have some with me," she said softly, her voice gentle and sincere. The weary faces around her suddenly brightened. One woman smiled kindly, patting Diep's frail hand as she whispered praise for such a thoughtful girl. Another, her voice thick with emotion, spoke of long years spent battling illness, of a deep ache for children and grandchildren far away. Diep sat quietly, her eyes glowing with compassion as she listened to each story woven between sighs. Every so often, she offered a simple, playful remark that made the room break into gentle laughter. Those soft chuckles, mingling with the murmurs of conversation, spread through the sterile white ward like a balm, dissolving the heavy gloom that had hung there. In that moment, Diep's own heart felt lighter. She realized she was not only soothing her own loneliness, but also bringing warmth to others who shared the same fate. Like a small flame flickering into the cold night, her quiet presence made the hospital room less bleak, less sorrowful, and a little more alive with human warmth. James left the hospital at dawn, before Diep had even woken. Each step weighed down with heaviness. Outside, the city was already alive, streets crowded, people rushing past. But inside him there was only a hollow ache that refused to settle. He tried to finish his work as quickly as possible, yet his mind never strayed far from the image of Diep lying in that hospital bed. Her pale face, parched lips, and eyes that held both frailty and quiet strength. As soon as his tasks were done, James hurried back to the hospital. The moment the door creaked open, he saw her still drifting in sleep, lashes trembling faintly as if fighting off exhaustion. Her hand tethered to an IV drip. His heart clenched sharply in his chest. He moved closer, placing his hand gently over her cold fingers, whispering, I'm back. Do you feel any better? Diep slowly opened her eyes. Weariness still clouded her gaze, yet the moment she saw James, a faint spark lit up deep within them. Her lips trembled, as if searching for words, but only one fragile sound slipped out. James. He immediately leaned down, his voice laced with worry yet softened by a tenderness that pierced the heart. I'm here now. Don't force yourself to speak. Just rest. I'll take care of everything. At his words, Diep gave the slightest nod, tears welling at the corners of her eyes. She had never wanted James to see her weakness, but his care unraveled every fragile wall she had tried to build. James gently pulled the blanket higher to cover her, then sat close by, his hand still clasped around her frail one. His steady gaze seemed to pour every ounce of strength he possessed into her, and in that moment, Diep no longer felt alone within the cold, sterile walls. Beside her was James, the man who, every time he returned, carried with him an entire sky of warmth. The next morning, gentle sunlight filtered through the trees outside the hospital window, casting a soft golden hue across the room. Diep looked more alert, her face no longer as pale as the day before. James noticed it in her eyes, still weary, but now holding a faint glimmer of resilience. He gently suggested, "How about I take you outside today? A change of air might do your spirit some good." Diep hesitated, then nodded. And so James guided her outside, their steps slow along the narrow path leading to the church. The air was serene, the distant toll of bells mingling with the faint scent of incense, as if washing away the weight of sorrow. Inside the sanctuary, Diep sat down on a wooden pew, her hands clasped together, eyes gently closed. A silent tear slid down her hollow cheek, falling like a wordless prayer. James sat beside her, quietly placing his hand over hers. He said nothing, only listened to her breath, to the tremor of her heart. Leaning closer, he brushed away her tear with the tip of his finger, his gaze tender yet unwavering. "You're not alone. I'm here, and I'll always be here." In that moment, within the hush of the chapel, Diep felt she had found a quiet refuge. The fear was still there, but with James beside her, she felt strong enough to keep moving forward. That afternoon, the hospital room was quieter than usual. The white light spilled down, casting its pale glow over rows of beds lined with light green sheets. Diep lay on her side, her face still drained of color, the marks of IV needles visible on her thin hands. Right beside her, James sat in silence, his eyes fixed on each fragile breath she drew. He had been thinking for so long, since the moment Diep collapsed on the road, since the devastating news from the doctor, since the endless days he sat holding her hand while his heart seemed to shatter. The proposal he had once planned for a warm place, beneath a blazing sunset, was now pressed into this cold hospital room. But James understood. True love does not wait for perfect moments. It must be spoken when the heart can no longer hold it in. He gently clasped Diep's hand, his gaze trembling yet resolute. His voice dropped low, thick with emotion. "Diep, I've been preparing for this moment for so long. I don't want you to wait another second. I want to walk with you through the rest of life's road, whether it's long or short. Will you marry me?" The hospital room, once so still with nothing but the steady drip of the IV, seemed to pause in the moment James revealed the ring. The air grew taut, every gaze in the room fixed upon them. Then, unexpectedly, came gentle applause, soft cheers rising from the surrounding beds. "Say yes, child!" An elderly patient called out with a warm smile, eyes gleaming.
"It's so rare to see a man so sincere," another woman whispered, her voice thick with emotion.
Those words of encouragement rippled through the room like a wave of warmth. The air, once heavy with illness, was now lit with a shared joy, simple yet priceless. Diep lowered her head, pale cheeks tinged with a shy flush. Surrounded by so many watchful eyes, her heart pounded wildly in her chest. Tears welled in her eyes, not only from deep emotion, but from the fear of becoming a burden. In front of her, James knelt beside the hospital bed, one knee to the floor, one hand clasping her frail fingers, the other holding tightly to the small ring. His face shone with both radiance and trembling, his gaze brimming with anticipation, steadfastness, and a love unshakable. No roses, no romantic backdrop, only the stark white of a hospital room. Yet in that moment, James's sincerity became a lifelong promise, and Diep, in that very instant, felt both overwhelmed and as though she were living a sacred moment she would never forget. Under the twilight on the hospital rooftop, the sky seemed draped in a thin amber veil. The last rays of sun filtered through the iron railings, casting long shadows across the warm red tile floor where Diep and James sat side by side, silent in a moment that felt endless. A gentle breeze stirred, lifting the edge of Diep's pale green patient gown. She bowed her head, fingers fidgeting with the hem, her eyes unable to meet the man sitting before her. The man who had run around for her, worried over every meal and every sleep, and who now had just proposed in a hospital room, a place no one would expect a declaration of love.
"James."
Diep turned to him and spoke softly.
"I love you very much, but I'm not ready to be your wife."
She raised her head. Her eyes shone with tears, her voice trembling yet resolute. James flinched slightly, his brows drawn as if he could not believe what he had just heard. Before he could smile, Diep looked down again, her lips pressed together as if to allow the words she'd just spoken. "I want to have a stable job, and at least to be healthy. Right now, my illness is still unclear. If one day I can't make it through, I don't want you to have to live with that unfinished feeling." James fell silent. A sudden gust of wind swept through, ruffling his hair, but he made no move to fix it. His gaze remained fixed on Diep's face, the face he had once seen radiant in the fields, weary in the hospital, and now fragile enough to make his heart ache. He lifted his hand and gently placed it over hers, steady and warm. "Diep, do you think I've never thought about that? I know illness comes without warning. I know the future may not be peaceful. But if I live in fear of that, then for the rest of my life I'd be nothing more than a bystander, too afraid to hold on to the woman I love." He tightened his grip on her hand, his eyes burning with faith and determination. "I love you, not because you're perfect. I love your weakness, your tears, and every worry you carry inside. If there's one thing that makes me feel most uneasy, it's the thought of not being by your side when you're at your most vulnerable." Diep said nothing. Silent tears rolled down her cheeks. She did not only pressed her trembling lips together while her hands clung tightly to his,
as though letting go would cause everything to vanish. "But," James spoke slowly, his voice softening like a passing breeze, "I won't force you. Even if you can't say yes yet, even if you need more time, I will wait. Every day, every second, until you're ready." Diep lifted her gaze to him. Her eyes no longer held only sorrow, but also a deep gratitude, a faint glimmer of hope in the midst of dark days. She did not say yes, nor did she make any promise, but the gentle way her head came to rest on his shoulder in that windswept evening was the sweetest answer of all. And James understood. She had begun to open her heart. The rest, he was ready to wait for. The breeze slipped through the mesh railing, tossing a few loose strands of her hair. Beyond, the city still pulsed with its own restless rhythm. But here, in the narrow corner of a hospital rooftop, two souls were learning to listen to each other's heartbeat. Slow, sincere, and full of hope.
Trung tâm vào để đồng hành cùng hành trình